The Smith & Wesson Model 686. Built on Smith & Wesson's beefed-up L-frame design to rectify issues of its K-frame revolvers when firing hotter ammo, the L-frames, introduced in 1981, were able to fire both .38 Special and the much more powerful .357 Magnum cartridge. The L-frames are also notable for being the last series of revolvers by Smith & Wesson designed specifically for law enforcement use, though they were quickly superseded by semi-automatic handguns. However, revolvers like the 686 remain popular sporting pistols and are still used by some smaller police forces today. Hi, I'm Andrew, and in this video, we'll be taking a long-awaited look at the Model 686 Airsoft CO2 Revolver by ARES. ARES' first ever revolver and a very welcome addition to the scant world of full metal airsoft revolvers. And I mean scant. With the exception of Wing Gun, most airsoft revolvers come from Japanese brands like Marushin and Tanaka, where their frames are made of plastic due to Japanese laws, which makes this full metal 686 by ARES a very much anticipated model for all the revolver enthusiasts out there. So let's get back to the gun, shall we? Over here is the Model 686 Airsoft CO2 Revolver by ARES. Like many CO2 revolvers, it is powered by a single 12-gram cartridge inside the grip and comes in two models, in the form of a 2-inch barrel snub nose and the 3.5-inch 686 that I have right over here. So let's start off with the externals. First thing you notice is the hefty weight of the full metal body. It's die-cast, not steel, but the weight makes it feel very close. And every time you use the gun or push out the cylinder, it has an absolutely gorgeous metallic ring to it. The gun itself has a very simple but plain finish, with no markings, but the grips, however, are made from real wood with excellent texturing that ensures the revolver will stay on the sweatiest of palms. At the front of this barrel, we have the front sight, with a small red plastic piece at the tip to assist with sight alignment. Now the rear open sights, however, are adjustable in both elevation and windage through the use of a flathead screwdriver. On the top over here, if you look very closely, is a screw hole for a very small hex key. Yes, unlike most revolvers, this Model 686 has an adjustable hop-up, which massively increases its accuracy, combined with the new ARES rubber tip shells. On the left over here, we have the cylinder release. Push forward to release the cylinder for reloads. However, if you pull it back, it has a secondary function of being a safety and prevents the trigger and the hammer from being pulled. It's not necessarily very realistic, but it is extra safe. Now the cylinder itself is a big, chunky piece of metal that holds 6 rounds and feels great with very little play. Push the release and, as noticed, the cylinder flips out on the left side, and use the extraction rod over here at the front to push spent shells out to reload. Now onto the hammer and trigger. Like most revolvers, the 686 can be fired in both single action with the hammer pulled back first, and double action where pulling the trigger also pulls back the hammer before release. Now in single action, the trigger is a bit heavy, but has next to no mush before releasing the action. However, in double action though, I almost guarantee your trigger finger will increase in size from the hefty workout from pulling this beast. Now, like the Wing Gun revolvers, this 686 is CO2 powered and uses standard 12-gram CO2 capsules. To access the chamber, lift the right hand wood grip and just screw in the capsule using a large hex key at the bottom, which should last you for a very significant number of rounds. We basically stopped counting after 50. Now this ARES revolver comes with 6 shells made to replicate .357 Magnum rounds. Pop one 6mm BB at the front and load it into the cylinder like the real thing. Now one thing to note about these ARES shells are their rubber tips. This ensures the BB is held securely in the shell and provides better gas seal for shooting. At the same time, the rubber tips don't slide as easily into place when using moon clips, which might lower reload times. Speaking of moon clips, each of these revolvers also comes with a moon clip. Pop the shells onto these, and you can quickly reload them all at once instead of individually. And now for the price. At just $145 US for the 2-inch and $154 US for the 3-inch, these new ARES revolvers are very competitively priced compared to the Tanaka and some Wing Gun and Umarex licensed revolvers, which is great for a brand new full metal revolver platform in airsoft. So the ARES 686 revolver looks and feels utterly gorgeous and is a much needed addition to the airsoft revolver lineup. But how does it shoot? Let's head to the range and find out. And now for the Chrono. Today we'll be firing 0.2 gram BBs using CO2. And now for the shooting test, this time at gun range zeros, around about 10-meter range. I have here the ARES 686 revolver and 1 reload. So instead of the usual 10 rounds, I'll fire 12 rounds because it's just more convenient. So anyway, let's get to it. Well, as usual, we first load it with these handy provided moon clips. Straight in, close the cylinder. And obviously for an accuracy test, I'll be doing it single action because it lessens the amount of movement caused by the trigger finger, and we'll see how well it does. So, range is hot, let's do this. Gosh, that is loud. Now, that is 6 rounds. However, because this is a revolver and there's no sort of empty round mechanism, there's actually no way to really tell whether it's empty. So do count your shots as you do it, otherwise you'll be blank firing. And now to reload. Same with a real revolver, all you have to do is push the cylinder release, push the cylinder out, and then push the ejection rod. Now, do note that there's a small metal lip just next to the cylinder that would block the extraction of the shells, unless the shells are in between it. So do note that before doing it as quickly as possible, as it could be problematic. And once you get that, discard your shells and pop up the same one here, which I also have on a moon clip. Slot them in. Make sure it clicks. And then you're back into it. So let's do the last 6 rounds. Wow. Well, first impression, it is loud. All that CO2 going straight down the barrel at once with no slides or anything really makes for a very hefty report. Second of all is that the trigger, it is strong. Like even in single action, never mind double action, the trigger has quite a hefty pull to release that hammer into the release valve and sending the BB over. But it's a sort of good thing because a heavy trigger is what you want in a revolver. Ultimately, they are designed in many ways to be possibly one of the safest firearms available. And the heavy trigger is very much part of how a revolver works. Externally, I mean, it feels great. It is fully metal. You feel the weight, you feel the sound, you know, you pull it out, you hear that swish. Every action has a metallic ring to it and it feels absolutely awesome. One thing I also do like is that even with the shells inside, there is a very massive lack of wobble. The only wobble you're going to see is from the actual moving of the cylinder itself on the hinge. Once it's locked in, you know, there is practically nothing available. It's very solid and it feels very reliable. Shooting wise, there is a hop-up over here. Unlike many of the earliest wing guns which have no hop-up, this ARES one does have a hop-up. Its consistency, it's difficult to really tell because All airsoft revolvers, especially ones that use single shells, always have a degree of unreliability because, like real revolvers, there is a gap between the barrel and the cylinder and the chamber that actually fires it. So there's always going to be a slight bit of inconsistency there. But from what I'm seeing, the BBs were going straight, they were affected by the hop-up, and they did end up all on target, which is very impressive because not many revolvers actually do that. Aside from the Tanakas, which have their own little sort of system, the previous wing gun revolvers, the ones without a hop-up, were didn't have a hop-up, so their range was always very limited. There are more showpieces. This one is a remarkable improvement. You will be able to skirmish with this, though you will be restricted to 6 rounds. So I'm very, very impressed with that. Aside from that, it just feels great. Wooden grips, can't beat that, right? Full metal body, really, really solid. The sights, though, they're not very precise. Big, fat orange, really, really, really idiot-proof sights. They practically covered the entire middle of the target I was shooting at, which is no biggie because revolvers are supposed to be short range anyway. So that's not really something to really complain about. All in all, really do like it. Let's see how well I did. All right. Okay, let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and I think the 12th one is in between all these. Now, obviously, this was actually the first time I actually fired this on the range. So we have a few flyers. That one, I don't actually know how it got there. Might have been the hop-up needs to be broken in a bit, but the later shots all really did extremely well. Like, that is actually very, very impressive. I mentioned earlier on, the inherent unreliability of revolvers due to the gap between the barrel and the cylinder. However, it seems that ARES' design, possibly involving the rubber-tipped cartridges that we have over here, have really sort of mitigated quite well, as this is some of the best grouping I've had. I mean, if you look really far back, I did review a wing gun, 44 Magnum a while ago. That one didn't do as well. This is actually incredibly impressive for a revolver that fires single shells. So really, really do like that. Overall, I am very impressed with ARES in this. ARES do have a hit and miss sometimes when it comes to their products. In this case, I think it is a hit, and I can't wait for what else they can do with this new series of revolvers. This is the 686. Frankly, I think it's only the beginning, and I can't wait for further models to go and come in. So, well done. Really keen on what comes next. And without further ado, let's get back to the studio. And we're back. So, the ARES 686 revolver looks and feels like an absolute beast. And shoots pretty well too. Externally, it's solid, metal, heavy, and has a gorgeous ring to it. It honestly is one of the best feeling airsoft revolvers out there. Performance is also very good, being accurate and pretty solid hitting with the included moon tips, providing an easy way to quickly reload your shells in-game, all for a very competitive price. But most importantly is the fact it is made by ARES. The airsoft world has been clamoring for some decent revolver competition in this space, and ARES has made an excellent start with the 686. Overall, we give the ARES 686 revolver a very impressive 4.5 stars out of 5, and we cannot wait to see what ARES is cooking up next. So let's hand it over to you guys. What are your thoughts on the ARES 686 CO2 revolver? Let us know in the comment section below. And for these cool products and many more, visit us at www.redwolfairsoft.com. This is Andrew, out.